Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded, so don't worry about furiously taking down notes. We will send this out within the next 24 to 48 hours after the webinar, so you can share it with a colleague or just rewatch it for your own viewing. Additionally, within the GoToWebinar control panel, you should notice an area titled Questions. Please use that tab to put in any questions throughout the presentation that may spring up in your head, or anything that Annette discusses sparks a question. We will have time towards the end of the presentation to get through as many questions as we can with the time allowed. And yes, otherwise we will get started. So again, thank you for joining us for AI Improves the Contact Center Experience for Leaders, Agents, and Customers. With 30 plus years in the customer experience profession, Annette Franz, CCEXP founder and CEO of CX Journey Inc., is an internationally recognized employee and customer experience thought leader, coach, keynote speaker, and author. She is a certified customer experience professional and an official member of the Forbes Coaches Council. Annette, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody joining us today, and look forward to your questions as we go through this. So let's go ahead and start with really just setting the stage for why we're here and why we're in business, right? It's all about our customers, and they have expectations about their interactions with your brand. They want those interactions to be fast and easy and convenient, seamless, transparent, effortless and frictionless, and the list goes on, right, as you can see on this slide. This is really the new normal for customer experiences. And these expectations today are not just for B2C brands, but also for B2B brands and the customers who interact with them, right? So keeping up with these expectations is necessary really for businesses to survive. Our customers have very little patience for bad experiences today. But what does this mean for you? Well, customers' expectations are high, so leveraging technology to enhance the experience is more important than it's ever been. And if you remember the definition of customer experience, it's the sum of all the interactions that a customer has with a brand over the life of their relationship with that brand, and especially the emotions, the feelings, and perceptions about those interactions. And it's not technology. Technology is a tool that supports and facilitates and helps to create those interactions that yield the feelings and emotions and perceptions, right? So we need to always keep that in check, that the customer experience is very much a human thing, and it's those emotions and feelings and perceptions. So back to this, right? So leaders are still struggling to meet the ever-changing expectations and really to differentiate themselves and their brands from competitors by improving that experience while also focusing on keeping costs in check, right? That's such an important thing. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation today. So the intersection of AI and customer experience is reshaping how brands do business, and that includes how the employee experience and the customer experience are shaped as well. So done well, what's going to happen is that it's a way to really set yourself apart from the competition. So it's time to use AI to improve the experience and to meet those expectations. But let's talk a little bit about how AI is used to achieve different outcomes for leaders, for agents, for customers, and for the business. But I'm going to start with talking about the expectations for AI. We just talked about customer expectations, but what about the expectations for AI? They are pretty big, right? Take a look at some of these stats here. So 60% of leaders, customer experience leaders, believe that AI will have transformative or significant impact on the experience. 96% of executives believe that AI isn't just a disruptor, but an accelerator. So very powerful expectations for AI. And as you look at the chart on the right-hand side, obviously, the customer interaction top of mind when it comes to, what you expect is going to be most impactful to the customer experience, right? Enabling customer self-service, gaining actionable insights, freeing up staff to do higher level things. We'll talk about a lot of these things as we go through the next, next several slides over the next 30 minutes or so. So the impact of AI is broad. It impacts how leaders lead, how employees work, and how customers interact with the brand. So it ensures that there's this consistent level of service quality by really standardizing responses and making sure that agents adhere to best practices, thereby really reducing variability in the experience for customers across the board, right? And we know that customers like consistent and seamless experiences, regardless of who they're interacting with and whether that's a human or it's a chatbot or a different department, right? They really have expectations for consistent experiences across the brand. AI allows contact centers to scale their operations efficiently. So as the volume of your interactions grow, AI can handle a significant portion of the workload, and that reduces the need for proportional increases in staffing too, right? And it can enhance data and security by monitoring interactions and compliance with privacy regulations and detecting potential security threats, thereby really keeping customer-sensitive information private and building trust. So as I go through the outcomes for each of these three constituents, the leaders, the agents or the employees, and the customers, keep in mind that ultimately they really are all leadership experience concerns, right? What leaders do drives the employee experience and the customer. What employees do drives the customer experience. So I'm going to talk about outcomes for each of these three constituents. Pretty much at a high level. We only have so much time, but know that there are a lot more outcomes than what I'm talking about today. Also, as I go through the outcomes, keep in mind that they are typically three primary objectives for using AI in the contact center, right? And they link very closely, obviously, to those three constituents. So we want to improve operational efficiency. We want to improve those interactions that customers have with the contact center. We want to improve employee productivity. But before we dive into AI and the outcomes for these three constituents, we have to look at the culture. And if you know me, you know that I've been talking a lot about a customer-centric culture and putting people first and what it takes to do that, especially over the last couple of years. And culture is really the foundation, right? It's the foundation of the organization, and it sets the tone for how employees will act and behave, interact with each other, interact with customers, and ultimately, in this case, how they're going to use AI for good. So culture is defined as core values plus behaviors. Values and behaviors of that customer-centric, data-driven, AI-using organization might look something like this. It might be around training and upskilling, or the importance of learning and development in the organization, right? Or certainly around collaboration. A customer-centric organization is a collaborative one. Ethical work. We do things for good, not for evil. And then about people and AI and what that looks like. So the behaviors that line up with those values might be around using AI to be effective and more productive. Again, working together for good, not for evil. Ensuring that we have appropriate use cases and transparency. We're telling customers how we're using their data and when they're interacting with an AI, driven something or other, right, versus interacting with a human. And then also using AI as an augmentation, augmenting or partnering with AI, so the agents are working side by side, or any employee is working side by side with that AI. Culture really plays a pivotal role in the successful implementation and outcomes of AI in the contact centers, right? So the right culture for AI implementation is one that embraces innovation, continuous learning, continuous listening, data-driven decision-making, collaboration, ethical responsibility, putting customers at the center, always having their best interests at the heart of everything that you do, agility, supportive leadership, strategic alignment, and transparency. And that creates a culture, this type of a culture really creates an environment where we are using AI effectively and responsibly, and thereby driving significant value and achieving successful outcomes. And I think that's a hot topic for a lot of folks right now, is that not just effectively, but ethically, and doing things for the good rather than for evil. So, all right, so let's start with specific outcomes for contact center leaders. And I'm sure some of you in the audience are contact center leaders. So let's talk about some of those things. Let's start with this one, reducing your training cycles, right? Not only does AI provide live feedback for the agent about the customer and her emotions, but AI also can guide them on how to address those types, those customers with those certain types of emotions and that level of emotion that they have, or even with regards to the complexity of the issue that they have. So AI is coaching and assisting in the moment and after the call, and that's huge, right? And AI can also prescribe and provide the necessary training or learnings for that particular agent or specific agents. I always say data is at the heart of designing and delivering a great customer experience. AI offers up quicker and more advanced analytics, and that results in data-driven decisions that make sure that we better understand our customers, make more informed decisions, and then improve operational efficiency as well. And that efficiency not only cuts costs, which contact center leaders are always on the hook for and figuring out how to do, but it also improves the speed and accuracy of service delivery. And that means that they can deliver a more contextualized experience, and that's a personalized experience that customers are expecting. This should be no surprise, but AI can improve cost controls. I talked about that a little bit already. So when we automate processes that are expensive for human agents to handle, we take some of that time and workload off of them, and they can, spend their time being more productive because AI offers up these operational efficiencies and predicting call volumes in order to optimize scheduling patterns, and that reduces labor waste and increases forecasting accuracy when it comes to scheduling your agents for the contact center. Okay, next let's talk about outcomes for contact center agents. I tried to just keep for each of the three constituents, 3 specific high-level outcomes. Again, there are more than 3. There are a lot more than 3. So, and I think when we think about that, we go back to just looking at the leadership ones. I think one of the big things that comes out of there that applies to especially leaders and agents, but then also translates to a great experience for our customers, is about removing some of those repetitive tasks and automating things and automating processes, not people, right? Automating the processes so that your employees can spend time doing more value-add work. And I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to talk about your agents here as we go into these next couple of slides. So let's help agents make better use of their time to be more efficient and feel like they're making greater contributions. Having that AI work side by side with them to find the answers quickly, predict issues, and prescribe next best actions to personalize the experience for the customers at scale. That's one thing that's humans is a challenge for us, is we are not necessarily scalable, right? And automate those time-consuming, menial, repetitive processes and tasks, and that frees up time so that your agents can, work on more complex or higher need issues and value-add conversations and build on, customer strength and the customer relationships. Let's also help them be more productive and get more work done in less time. Again, automating processes, that's a big one, right? Minimizing their workload by offering up those self-service options for customers so that they can help themselves and probably address a lot of those very common and repetitive issues that your agents are dealing with, right? And upskilling employees to take them to another more interesting level, to more value-add work. This is going to be a big, it's already, these conversations are already happening, but this is going to be a big thing to keep in mind as we move forward, the reskilling, the upskilling of our agents so that they don't lose their job, right? That they can work side by side with the AI and with AI complementing what they do. Okay, and all of that obviously translates to lower agent turnover because they appreciate doing that value add or higher value work versus spending time solving easy, repetitive, menial, those questions that can be answered through, self-service or a conversational AI or a virtual assistant or a chatbot or whatever you've got, right? So they can be handled in a more efficient manner through self-service, taking those off of your agents, right? AI also reduces agent effort, and that leads to greater agent satisfaction and lower turnover. So I think one of the great outcomes for this ought to be, I think a lot of people think that they're going to lose their jobs, but instead it's job satisfaction and retention and less turnover because they're going to be, again, upskilled, reskilled, working side by side with AI to do the things that we need them to focus on, which is, building and strengthening our customer relationships. Okay, and finally, let's talk about some outcomes for customers when you use AI in the contact center. I'm going to start with first contact resolution. This is a huge expectation, obviously, of customers in customer service interactions. They want you to solve the problem first time around. They don't want to, be bounced around and have to wait and all of that. They want to get the answer on their first contact, right? So here's an interesting statistic from Service Quality Measurement Group, right? They found that for every 1% improvement in first call resolution, you can reduce operating expenses by 1%, increase customer satisfaction by 1%, and even increase employee satisfaction by up to 5%. So that's a huge, huge benefit and outcomes for customers and for employees. So here are a few ways to achieve that, first contact resolution, right? Use AI to automatically populate case fields and then match the customer to the right resource. And that might be an agent, but it's probably also going to be, or should be, your knowledge base, your FAQs, video tutorials, something else, right? And that also means, we're going to do a personality match and a skills match to make sure that we match them up or marry them up with the best person to handle that issue, especially if it's a more complex issue. So higher first contact resolution is an important outcome. All right, probably along that same vein, you can use AI to achieve faster response times, right? One of the most important and effective ways is to use AI tools that assist agents in finding answers to complex questions. We all know that when we contact, customer service or customer support, and we hear the agent go, "Hang on a second, my computer's frozen," or give me a little bit of time here, or whatever it is, that they've got 15 screens open, right? Because they're trying to find the account information, product the customer is using or has bought, answers to their issues. But AI can help them find that information and work in the background to help them, do everything that they're doing on 15 screens in a real time, in a matter of, while the agent's talking to the customer. You can also offer up those self-service options that better meet customers' needs, right? Like I said, conversational AI, chatbots, virtual assistants, knowledge base, FAQs, and discussion forums, having customers help each other too. These can all be offered up really in a seamless and automated fashion, and that allows customers to find their answers more quickly, and again, faster response time. So that's a big one for customers. We can also use AI to personalize the experience, and a big thing here is improving the customer journey, right? And one of the big tools that I'm talking about here is journey orchestration, right? It's a bottom-up approach to building out the customer journey using data that you've already got about your customers, right? The feedback that they've given us, some metrics, the interaction and transaction data that we have about our customers to really discover and then visualize the experience they're having, and then identifying when and where to orchestrate them to enable them and ensure that their next best actions lead them to successful outcomes. So journey orchestration, a big tool in terms of helping the customer achieve their goals, helping the customer, ensuring that they achieve the outcomes they're trying to achieve, and personalizing that experience for them. And this is a hot topic that's actually been around for many years, probably at least a good 8 or 9 years. And somebody had asked me just recently, why aren't people talking about this? And I feel like I try to bring it up every time I'm doing a conversation or a webinar or something about AI, because this is a really powerful way to help customers achieve what they're trying to achieve, and again, personalize those experiences. So using this approach, right, you can identify where the journey began, where it might break down, and when or where customers might churn, right? And that allows you to personalize the experience by prescribing those next best actions and making sure that the next thing they do doesn't break the experience, but makes it, right, and allows them to achieve those outcomes. All of that then ultimately means, reduced effort and churn and increased satisfaction for your customers. So as I was, putting this together, I started thinking about, okay, we talk about a lot about sort of the usual things that we hear about customers and the customer experience and the agent experience and leadership experience. And I thought, let's take a look at some other things that people don't don't always talk about or don't always think about as we think about the things that AI can help us deliver. So did you know that AI can help us with empathy analysis? It can assess the sentiment and the empathy levels in the interactions that customers and agents are having, and then help train the agents to be more empathetic. And that leads to deeper customer relationships for sure, deeper conversations for sure, which will ultimately lead to deeper relationships. Also, customer wellness insights. AI can detect signs of stress or dissatisfaction or frustration in your customers' voices or their messages or their texts, and then can escalate that interaction to agents that are best equipped, trained to provide that emotional support. And then what we're really doing is providing sort of this holistic customer care, because they take on this whole sort of wellness advocate type of a role there. Speaking of advocates, there's also using AI to act as a virtual customer advocate, right? The AI learns about the customer's preferences and history, and then automatically follows up on unresolved issues, makes sure that promised actions are completed, and might even negotiate service adjustments on behalf of the customer. Real-time language translation, probably many of you've heard this one. In real time, obviously, it can provide that translation for agents so that they can communicate with customers in their native language, and that really removes language barriers and opens you up to a more global audience. Voice biometrics for authentication, using AI to do that and authenticating customers quickly and securely. So it analyzes, characteristics of a customer's voice and allows them to seamlessly and authenticate, and it's fraud proof. And then finally, and there are so many more, but just for the time that we have today, behavioral analytics for training. I talked a little bit about training already, right? AI analyzes the content, the behavior, the emotional state of both the agents and the customers during their interactions to identify patterns, so that AI can offer that personalized training to agents and help them improve their interaction skills and their emotional intelligence. So different ways to think about AI. Like I said at the beginning, I'm just talking about some outcomes and some use cases, but there are a ton of them out there. Okay, so lots of great outcomes for these three constituents, but now what? Where do you begin? Well, I'm going to share this quote. I think this is a noteworthy quote and a hot topic of conversations today, and I've already brought this up once today. The quote is from Robin Bondoli from Authentic Ventures. Robin said, "I think what makes AI different from other technologies is that it's going to bring humans and machines closer together. AI is sometimes incorrectly framed as machines replacing humans. It's not about machines replacing humans, but machines augmenting humans. Humans and machines have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's about the combination of these two that will allow human intents and business process to scale 10x, 100x, and beyond in the coming years." I think that's a very interesting quote. I know there's a lot of people out there who agree with that. There may be some who don't, but I think this is the way we go. So if you think about balancing AI and that human touch, that human in the loop really becomes important to maintain a balance. We've got to integrate AI to complement humans, to complement people, to complement agents, not to replace them, right? So AI has its limitations. I'm not going to read all of those, but I think we know a lot of that in terms of can't make value-based decisions, lack of empathy and understanding, can't solve complex issues or think about things critically, right? Humans have our limitations too, right? Unpredictable or irrational behavior throws things off. We can interject biases, and quite honestly, so can the AI. It's all based on the data that you use to train it, right? But humans can interject biases that automated systems might be able to detect it or deal with that, right? We can't process large amounts of data simultaneously. I've tried. I've been in this business for long enough that I've tried it many times, but not that much data, right? And we're not scalable. So I think those are some things that just sort of support the fact that human in the loop, humans and machines working together is where it's at, and should be going forward, right? All right. So as we think about outcomes for these three constituents, and you consider how to achieve those outcomes, we have to think about a few different things, right? Number one, what are your objectives? What are your goals? What are your specific use cases? Why do you want to bring AI into the organization, right? What problem is it going to solve for your customers? What problem is it going to solve for your employees? What problem is it going to solve for the business? And I think those are really important questions to ask before you begin, because I see a lot of companies just diving into AI because everybody else is doing it, and it fails. The implementation fails because we didn't stop and just think about why we're doing this. We're just doing it because everybody else is doing it, right? Okay, number two, assess your infrastructure, right? Do you have the right technology in place right now to integrate or use AI within your contact center, right? And I think the next one is really important to, and 2 and 3 obviously go together. Make sure you have the right data. Data is at the heart, again, heart of designing and delivering a great experience. And it's at the heart of AI. I mean, you can't have AI without the data, and that data has to be contextually relevant. I think that's a really important thing. I think when we talk about right data, people go, well, what does that mean? You know, right data is exactly that. It's contextually relevant. It makes sense at the time, right? It's the right data for the right people at the right time. And if you think about, even I think journey orchestration is a great example of that, right? We need to have the right data to understand where the customer is at that moment so that we can understand the journey they've been on and where they're headed, and prescribe the next best actions. Number 4, train employees, help them understand how to use AI-driven tools and how to work together with the AI, right? And that they'll have opportunities to upskill, reskill, and add more value. Now, I'm gonna just stop here for a second and talk about employees. One of the things that businesses typically are guilty of is getting some kind of new tools or new technology and just forcing them on employees. And employees sit there and go, okay, what is this? It complicates my job. I got to stop and take the time to learn this or do that, right? I think we go back to number 1, defining your objectives, and we reach out to employees and say, what problems are you having right now? What problems could AI solve for you today? And really involve them in this process, right? It's going to make it a lot easier, and it's going to make number 4 definitely a lot easier too. And that's where you really want to work with your employees and get that employee experience right. Number 5 is all about communicating with customers, right? I mentioned earlier about their expectations. So we want to set their expectations about the AI enhanced experience and what it means for them. How are things going to change? How will it impact them? How will they benefit? How's their data being used? I mean, be transparent. How is their data being used? This is one of the number 1 issues and fears about AI and about data in general when it comes to brands is, how's my data being used? And don't let there be any sort of disparity in terms of what I know about you and what I don't know about how you're using what you know about me, right? So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. Number 6, build the right foundation, right? Build the right culture. Culture is the foundation of your business. I can't say this enough, right? Don't forget to put customers at the heart. Their best interests are always front and center. So employees more first. We need to make sure they're involved and we understand how AI is going to help them. When they're happy and they're using a new tool that makes them more productive and more efficient and more satisfied, that's going to translate to customers, and they're going to be much more open and willing and excited about helping customers, right? Know that the technology supports and facilitates the experience, but it's not the experience, right? So I think that's important. The experience is very much about those feelings, emotions, and perceptions of the interactions with the brand, and I think we need to keep that top of mind as we think about implementing AI or any new technology, right? How is it going to help the employee? How's it going to help the customer? And how's it going to help the business? Those are 3 important things that we need to look at each and every time and make sure that those all align in the end, right? And work together to achieve the right outcomes for everybody. Alrighty, and with that, I am going to open it up to Q&A, and Darius, I think you're coming back, right?
Yes, I am here. Thank you so much, Annette. Again, we do have a few questions in the queue, but if anyone had additional questions, we still have some time, so please use that questions module within the GoToWebinar panel and get those in there. Let's see. One question coming in. How do I determine the ROI of customer experience improvements that I implement?
The $64,000 question. I have to say that every time I've been in a meeting where people say, what is the most important challenge for customer experience professionals? It's ROI, right? There are a lot of different ways to do ROI. I would say one of the big things to keep in mind when it comes to ROI is everybody goes right away to revenue, profitability, those kinds of things. I think the easier place to start is, where am I saving money and how am I making the business more efficient? So take a look at that. Take a look at cost savings to start with, and then think about ROI. Revenue a little bit further down the line. I think first and foremost, the important thing is to really understand what your executives are looking for and how the work that you're doing has initially been tied to business outcomes, right? I mean, you have to start there. Is, we're going to make these changes and we're going to tie it to these outcomes, and then you've got to identify your success metrics and track it along the way. Years ago, I worked with an insurance client, and we had been listening to the voice of the customer, and we set up a one part of the contact center. At the time it was a call center, but one part of the call center to follow up with any customer that identified themselves as dissatisfied, and this at-risk group followed up with every single customer who was basically a detractor, right, or was dissatisfied, and turned around a huge number of those customers, and the savings came out to be $11 million over the course of a year, right? One example, to go and have this like little skunk works project, which is what I would call it, test it in one department, in one area, identify the outcomes. Again, what are you trying to achieve? What are your success metrics? How did you achieve them? How are you linking that to the business outcomes? And that's what we did, right? We took a look at it. We said, okay, we're doing this and we're following up with customers. We've saved X%. We've rescued $11 million in revenue over the course of the year, and do those kinds of things. There are a lot of different ways that you can that show ROI without going right away to revenue and profitability for the entire organization, right? Hope that answered the question. I was long-winded, but I hope that answered the question.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Another one coming in. How do we consider personalization, and how much should that be a focus when considering customer experiences? I know privacy might become an issue at that point, though.
Yeah, there's definitely, that sort of creepiness factor about, and again, that goes back to transparency. You have data about me. What are you doing with it, and how is it being used? Personalization is a huge expectation for customers today, and I've seen a lot of statistics out there that have said, I will share my data if you use it obviously for good, not for evil, and help me achieve my outcomes. It's probably, when I look at some of the things that I'm hearing from customers as I'm talking to customers, and some of the statistics and reports that I've seen out there, is probably the number one expectation is send me on my way with an experience that's going to help me, not somebody else.
Great, thank you. We do have a couple questions that all are revolving around a similar theme of, there's been a lot of great information that you've shared with us. There's so many players in the AI space. How do you really and tactfully determine how to get started and where? Again, maybe certainly a loaded question that we could have go down a rabbit hole, but curious if you have any sort of high level answers or suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, I would go back to, it's number one, it's culture. I mean, that's your leveling the playing field right there in your organization, is the culture, and making sure that you have the support from your executives, have the right culture in place that's collaborative, sharing. I mean, data has to be shared across the organization. AI is not going to be successful if you're keeping that data in silos and isn't shared. So that's why I spend so much time talking about culture in a customer-centric one, where you're open to information sharing and data sharing. I don't know all the vendors out there when it comes to AI, so I can't even recommend what your bake-off is going to look like or who you should have in that. But I can just tell you that you've got to have get your internal ducks in a row, and again, an understanding of why do you want to use AI? What are your use cases? What are your proposed use cases? And does that make sense for our organization?
Great, thank you. Let's see, we have another one. If you realize you don't have the right infrastructure set up or aren't collecting the right data, what tips do you have for addressing that and getting everything set up to use AI effectively?
Start over. Well, I mean, the first, as they say, the first thing you do is you acknowledge that there's a problem, right? And then it's assessing each one of those. I mean, you have groups within your organization. Again, it goes back to objectives and why you're doing it and where you're using it and how you're using it and all of that, is to go back and I'll just use an example from a customer feedback program, right? Voice of the customer program. If that's data that you have coming in and that's data that you should absolutely use as you're implementing your AI initiatives, you go back and you reassess and say, hey, how are we using this data? Who's using it? Who does it benefit? You have to do that assessment. You've got to go and do sort of the data map and feedback map, and at what point are we getting this feedback, and at what point are we collecting this data about our customers, and is it the right data? So you're going to start with doing that kind of an assessment to make sure you have the right data at the right from the right place in the right time, right? Infrastructure in terms of the technology, again, it's going to be the same thing. Do I have technology that, integrates well if I bring in a platform that's, AI specific, or do I need to go out and get a platform that is already, with AI and AI capabilities and features and functionality and all of that already built into it. So you're going to start out with a general assessment of what you have, and then start from there. Start cleaning it up and start fixing it and start bringing things together from there. It's going to be that, and bringing in the people that you need to be able to do that. You're going to need people who have very specific skills and who know how to use AI and who know where the data is and how to bring the data together and all of those different things in order to be successful.
Thank you, Annette. We have time for just a couple more questions. Again, we're trying to get to as many as possible. So maybe two more. Let me see what's coming. In your view, what are some true possibilities in regards to breaches and confidentiality using AI?
Ooh, breaches and confidentiality. Wow. That's a good question. Yeah, I don't have it. I don't have any examples of that. I haven't seen any. I haven't heard of any. I don't know, Darius, you got any?
I don't, but we can follow up and dig in.
Yeah,
after
absolutely.
I don't we can pass that over to our maybe our tech team has some experiences there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Suppose you do not have enough data to even begin or consider using AI. Do you wait, or are there ways to implement it in this sort of middle period?
For me personally, so years ago I worked for a company that was we had a predictive prescriptive analytics software. It was a startup, and if you didn't have enough data, your results were going to be wonky. There's no better way to put it than that. I mean, you can augment it with, but I don't think you want to. I don't think you want to augment it right now with industry data or anything like that. I think you want to know your customers and use your customers' data to implement that AI. My personal perspective, my personal opinion is I would wait, and I would make sure that going forward, let's say over the next 6 months, you're very specific and very methodical about getting and gathering the data that you need to effectively implement that AI.
Great, thank you so much, Annette. So final question,
Sure.
just given the time. Really appreciated the quote you shared earlier about augmenting human interactions as opposed to replacing them. But to what extent should we augment the human customer experience with a digital or AI one? Is it blanketly everything if possible, or key in on some of those components?
I'm going to go with some. I think that and there's a statistic out there from a few years back that said the more technologically advanced brands become, the more humans want to interact with humans. So I think we do the things that are that simplify and that make sense, but the rest of it we leave for the humans. Again, there was that comparison of human limitations and machine limitations, and that by no means was an exhaustive list of limitations on either side, right? So I would go with the latter rather than the former.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So again, those are all the questions we could get to within our period to make it a nice, impactful webinar. So Annette, I want to thank you again, and curious if you had any final thoughts or any thanks for the day.
No, I think that just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for attending. I think that again, I wouldn't be afraid of using AI, but don't use it just because everybody else is doing it. Make sure that you really have the foundation in place and that you really understand why you're using it and what problems it's going to solve for each of those constituents and for the business as a whole.
Thank you so much, Annette, and thank you everybody for joining us today.